You're listening to Solera Innovation Labs, where automotive experts from around the world discuss technology trends in mobility and debate tomorrow's rules of the road. Whether you're a technician, a dealer, an appraiser, a car lover, or anything in between, we'll discuss topics that will keep you up to date and help you and your business win.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Don's Drive-In. I'm Don, your host today. And with me, I have Kyle Holt, the president of SB2, to discuss some of the things going on in the automotive industry regarding safety, education, and training. And so we'll spend some time to go through this, as well as some of the needs in the industry for students. And really, in one of my other podcasts, we talked a lot about the need for the technicians out there and what this organization is doing to help fulfill the need and the challenges faced by the automotive sector to bring talent in. But what I want to do now is welcome you, Kyle, to our Solera Innovation Lab.
Thanks for having me, Don. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, we really are excited to have you on, to be quite honest with you. And what we want to do is give you a brief second to tell our listeners about you, your organization, and then we'll get into some questions about what you guys are doing and really what SB2 does. Because I think there's a huge need, a huge gap in the industry, and I think you guys address a lot of those things. So why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your organization?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you again for having me on. I appreciate it, Don. So SP2, we've been around since 2002, and most people across the industry know us for providing safety and environmental training, online training. We work with about 2,300 shops across the country, and we also work with over 2,900 career tech programs now. And that's been a fast-growing segment of our business, is working with the instructors, the students, the administrators and counselors across the country to help that next generation of technician not just know how to be safe and environmentally compliant, but also hitting them with topics on soft skills and HR and ethics and trying to make sure that they are well-rounded for the career that they're about to enter. And what we found was with access to 2,900 programs, we've got over 200,000 students who are taking our training each year. And we said, there is this whole thing, surprise, surprise, we hear more and more about the technician shortage. Maybe we can do something to help on that. And so we launched a system called SP2 Careers, and it's out there right now. It's a recruiting system for shops and dealerships to find hire entry-level technicians from all 50 states, all across the nation. We've got 50,000 candidates out there for shops to recruit from right now.
And Kyle, when you say that, let's talk a little bit about, because our listeners are going to be a wide range with the Solera family. And you and I spent some time on an industry board, which is the Collision Education Foundation, right?
Mm-hmm.
CREF.
Right.
And so we spent a lot of time on the collision side. So when you talk about the shops today, you're talking specifically in the collision vertical per se, but you guys are more than just in that vertical. So because of Solera in the family, we have other products like Identifix that's really in the mechanical space. And so you guys are also playing in that space as well. So the 50,000 that you're talking about that you help is in the collision side, but you're also in the mechanical space, correct?
Correct. And what's interesting is when we talk about what we do with industry, most of the shops that are using our training are actually on the collision side. That's the kind of my background. That's where myself and my family came from. But with the career technical schools, there are more automotive service programs across the nation than collision and heavy duty diesel programs combined. And so we do a lot with all three of those segments: auto service, collision repair, heavy duty diesel. And then we have a few outside of that. But our big focus with the career tech programs has really been that automotive transportation industry.
Right. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about, because on the safety side, this goes back, and I go back to my career and having my own shops. And there was a time where insurers came out and mandated at one point, and some of them on their DRP programs, that the employees go through this type of training, the safety training. And your company was one of the companies that a lot of the insurers partnered with and said, look, these guys have it. They have the information and the certifications, or the documentation, if you will, that your shops have been through this. But let's go back a little bit to it, because here's the thing that's interesting. We had a safety coordinator in my facility, and all we did is we made sure that we were working with our vendors. We had all the MSDS sheets, right? So in a body shop scenario, it's, you come through on an audit, OSHA walks in, or the EPA, right? What are the things they're looking for? So I think we should educate the viewers a little bit on the core of what you guys do, and then we'll talk because what you guys do, and this is kind of interesting, and I think anyone who's listening, your garage keeper's liability insurance can be affected dramatically by making sure that everyone's trained properly and has continuing ed on a regular basis. Because now you can, right? It can. Yeah. Because you can reduce workplace incidences, right? Because of the safety training you guys do. It's not just, hey, do I have the right documentation on the here? Do I have, when I go look in the paint department, is everything? I have a lid on everything. Am I disposing it properly? Are things grounded right in the back? These are things, but it's the little stuff that most guys don't realize, that when you walk around a shop today, I don't care if it's mechanical or collision, your exit signs still work. Are they lit? Right? That's number one. Because how many times do they work? Are they lit? Are they blocked?
Are your fire extinguishers properly charged, and have they expired? Are they marked? Are exits clearly marked? There's a whole host of things. The sad part about it is that pretty much any shop out there, if an OSHA or an EPA inspector walks in right now, they'll be able to find something. That's just almost the nature of the business. It's really not about what they're going to find. It's, have you done enough, and are you making the effort to keep your people safe, to be environmentally compliant? Are you trying your best, and are you doing the things that are legally required, such as, are you training on an annual basis? A lot of shops don't realize that they are legally required by OSHA to train on safety when a new employee comes on board, annually thereafter, and any time that the shop environment changes and creates any kind of new safety hazard.
Well, and let's talk about what, because to our listeners, right, some of them may not understand what you mean by the environment changes. I'll give you a prime example. I went from a solvent-based product to a water-based product in the paint department. It's changed. So safety training is necessary. Everyone goes, yeah, but it's a water-based product. Okay, but there are different risks and safety issues concerned with water, and you're still using a solvent, but those are the kind of things we're talking about. You now moved into aluminum and you have your aluminum, you have your clean room, right? But there are other safety requirements that are around aluminum. You go in and you're detailing your car. You now decide to move from product A to product B to clean your car. I need to update my MSDS sheets. I need to make sure everyone's been trained on those, right? And I also need to make sure that what are the concerns about that product, right? And it sounds like it's over the top, but the reality is it's not over the top. These are things that people need to be fully aware of.
That's right. And not just that, but as an employer, your employees have the right to know what hazards they're going to be working with, and where are those SDS sheets, and how do I get to them, and what do I need to know about the equipment that's in the shop. Those are things that a lot of shops, managers, owners take for granted, and a lot of employees do. They take it for granted until something happens. And that's when you're most likely to have an OSHA or EPA inspector walk in. It's not just going to be random most of the time. It's going to be because something occurred. And then not only are you dealing with the incident that's already occurred, but now you're under investigation to see, well, what else is going on? And how many different hazards can we find?
And once I found one, I'm going to go look for more because, hey, wait a minute. Especially if it's egregious, right? If it's minor and you're doing the core things, the main things, right? We talked about the safety of the exit signs, clearly marked, not right. My fire extinguishers, those things. But if you're not taking care of the basics, they're going to dig deep, right? Yeah. I got a story I think you'll get a kick out of. So I had a shop in Indiana, many shops in Indiana, but the Indiana Department of Environmental Management, IDEM, came in. And they were targeting, I don't know if they were targeting, look, this is a personal preference, right, or comment, but we were a large group that continued to grow. So we're going back many years ago. And because of it, I started looking at these big groups. And they say they came into us and they came in and they interviewed our painter. And he asked the painter what his process. And so he was done painting, and to clean his gun, he put some waste thinner in there and, moving around in the canister, and then he'll spray it through the gun a little bit, right? But he was spraying it into the filter.
Oh.
And the bottom filter, right? Yep. So they said, that's not an issue. It's not fine. It's not a problem. How do you get rid of those filters?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So you go back and, of course, our safety coordinators out there as well. Over time, right now, they go into the normal dumpster.
Oh.
Yeah, right? So, you guys are fine. Boom. So we got hit with this big fine, right? So as we found out that they were, as IDEM found that we had disposed of them in the dumpster, we started to go through and have some conversations internally because they fined us. And they really put a big fine on us for it. And what we found out is that we said, you know what, let's go get these filters tested, which they didn't do, right? They just fined us. So we went and had them tested, and they come back and they pass. We're trying to figure out how do they pass? Because you put a cleaning thinner in there, which is the solvent, right? And when you spray it and it dissipates, it goes away, right? And it dries. Mm-hmm. When it dries, even if there's a little bit of paint in there, when the paint dries on your car, is it a hazardous piece of material? And the answer is it wasn't. So it was kind of interesting as we went through this stuff. But my point being is that when IDEM comes in, they're going to go look at whatever your habits are.
Yeah.
They're going to interview your people, and you're going to have to, as an organization, now not every company is going to have the wherewithal to go say, hey, let me go take my filter, right, and have it tested with an independent lab, which is what we had to go do, not once, but multiple times, just to ensure the fact that the test results were accurate, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is the stuff that you guys do. You educate and train the business owner and their people. You make sure that they have all the MSDS sheets available because, look, in my break room, we had them there. The book was updated, right?
Well, one of the things that we don't do is we don't come into the shop and make sure that you've got all of your SDS sheets. Everything that we do is online. We handle the training side. We provide the shop with information that they need regarding their paperwork issues, the hazard communications things. We allow them to handle that on their own. There are plenty of companies out there that do some consulting and help them, handhold them through that process. We try to make sure that the shop is empowered to handle it on their own. If you want to do something with a consultant, that's fine. But frankly, most shops are very capable of handling things on their own. They just need to make sure that they understand what the most common violations are. And the most common violation is paperwork. It's not having proof that people have taken their training. It's not having that 300 log. It's not having the things that a shop has to have on hand written in case somebody were to walk in the door and say, okay, I'm here. Now we're going to have an investigation, and first thing I want to see is I want to see all your paperwork. And that's where, if you don't have your paperwork, that's where the problems really start.
That's where it starts. And so, Kyle, you guys have been doing this for how many years? SB2 has been around for how long?
Yeah, we've been around since 2002. So we're 17 years now. We've been doing this.
Wow.
And it's been great. I love working with the shops out there. I grew up in the collision repair industry. I love to see shops getting better and more professional out there. But I got to be honest, Don, I have just as much fun, probably more so, working with the career tech schools, because in those cases, those students oftentimes, we are literally the first exposure they have to anything in the automotive industry. When they walk in the door, those instructors say, before you step foot in the work area, you will take your SP2 training. You will know how to be safe and environmentally compliant, or you will not be stepping back with the rest of us. And really, it's to protect themselves. Those instructors need to protect their school. They need to protect their program. They need to protect the students, of course. They're also protecting themselves because they don't want a student to walk back there on the first day of school and do something stupid that hurts him or her or somebody else in the shop or starts a fire. And we see
and that's a perfect place, like you said, to start. I mean, right? These students are new to these environments, right? They may have had some exposure being high school or whatever to some of these programs or after hours things, or working in the garage or whatever it may have been, but they don't know all of the safety concerns that are there. So you're right. It's probably one of the best places to start, so that everyone coming out has got that that knowledge and that base. So when you talk about it, you have 200,000 students or people that have taken classes. Is it students or just people that have attended and gone through classes and certifications?
So we've had over 200,000 students from the career tech schools alone take our training just in the last 12 months.
Really?
So, yeah. I mean, we actually we're right in the middle of the school year right now. The school's launching. I say middle of the school year. Our school, quote unquote, school season is the first 7-8 weeks of school, where all the students are coming back, and this is the busiest time of the year. So last week we had over 900,000 training modules taken last week alone, and it's students going through and learning how to be safe and what to do and what not to do in the shop environment.
Wow, that's awesome. So that's just amazing to me. How many? Because when you start looking at, we just for some reason that number seems so large. The number of students, right? Because as we talk, even when we're on the CREF board together and spend time, the number of students that are in. But again, you're talking about multiple sides, right? It's not just collision; it's mechanical, it's diesel, right? It's the myriad of automotive industry and positions available that you're pulling these students in from. But that's just a very large number. It's awesome to hear, right? I don't think people really truly understand what impact you have when they finally get into the workplace, right? From a safety perspective.
I think that when you hear that number, the first thing that pops into my head is, why on earth do we have a technician shortage if we have 200,000 students that are going through an automotive, collision, or heavy-duty diesel program every year? And the answer is that many of those students never enter the industry at all. We do a poor job from an industry standpoint of recruiting them into the industry, and oftentimes we do a poor job of keeping them in the industry once they get there. The ASE Education Foundation just did some research last year and found that we've got a 42% attrition rate from graduates of automotive programs. We're losing them to other industries in the first 2 years of their employment. So we've got to do a better job, not just keeping them once they're in the industry, but bringing them in the first place. And we've got plenty of students out there. We just have to make the industry attractive and bring them in and give them opportunities to succeed and see that they can have a career with whether it's collision, auto service, or diesel.
Right. And do you feel that, and I applaud what you guys are doing, because what you've done is you've taken the safety and training aspects, right, and have been able now to go foster the entry of those new candidates and where they're being trained so that they're walking in with safety. And with that, you've now identified a need, because everyone comes out and says, look, we're struggling to find technicians. It doesn't matter if it's, like you said, mechanical, collision, whatever. And so you guys start SB2 careers, right? So that once these students go through, they can now take a look at, or employers can now come to your site and take a look at these people that are, like you said, 42%, right, are staying in it. The rest are leaving. So you got a very large percentage are leaving. But part of it is, and again, we've had this conversation, but for our listeners, is it the fact that in these industries, we don't have a career path like you'd find if I want to become an electrician, a plumber, or a carpenter, right? Because we're an independent group. It's not a unionized group. Right. It shows that here's how you move up the ranks. I mean, is that part of what this generation of new students are seeing is that the career paths just don't seem as plentiful, and yet you start looking at these super MSOs that are out there, and it doesn't matter if you're in collision or if you're in the mechanical side. There's just large organizations that have these tremendous career paths, but we just don't talk about it or show it like you would some of these others. Is that part of it?
Without a doubt, that is a significant problem. We've got to show that there is a career path and that certifications that you can achieve and levels of training and ongoing education will take you up that ladder. And you can, the faster you get, the more money you make, the more repetition you have, the better you're going to be, the quicker you're going to be. And if we can show that to a young technician, especially if we can do it while they're still in school, rather than wait for them to graduate.
Right.
If they can recognize that there is a career path out there, and these are the things you need to do, we can make a significant difference. One of the challenges we have is I was talking to an instructor who said, I've got a student, and this was an instructor on the automotive service side, said, I've got a student who was working at Wendy's. And at Wendy's, he was making $11 an hour. Then he got a job at a dealership, and he was making $10.50 an hour. and the young man was fine with that because he recognized, I can move up here, but I can't really move up at Wendy's. And then he got hit with the news, but I have to buy my own tools?
Yeah.
How much do I have to put into tools? And when he realized that it was going to be over $5,000, he said, you know what? I'm going to go back to Wendy's. And that's what he did. And so 2 years in career tech school, and he comes out, and in that case, it wasn't the fact that he didn't realize there was that there was a career path. He got that. He understood that. It wasn't even the pay. It was the pay plus the tools, plus the time it was going to take, and all of it he just finally went, nope, I'm out. And that was it.
The barriers. And so with that, I want you to hold that thought for a minute, because we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after this message, and we'll pick up right where we left off.
Solera Innovation Labs is a podcast produced by Solera, a global leader in data-driven solutions and services. Solera collects and translates complex data into actionable insights for automotive, identity, and property partners across 90 countries and counting. Learn more at Solera.com or find us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram.
Hi, well, welcome back. We're here with Kyle Holt in SB2, and we're going to pick up where we left off, talking about where the barriers are for these young people getting into the industry. And what we're talking about was kind of the Wendy's scenario. It wasn't necessarily the pay, but it was more of the equipment necessary. And you were really talking more on maybe on the mechanical side. On the collision side, the amount of tools these guys need to have, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Where you got technicians in the back. When I had my shops, we helped with insuring, their tools when it was on our property. And you got guys $50,000-$75,000 worth of equipment, right? Tools just to be able to work on these cars. So I think those are some of the things that need to be addressed. But how does the industry address that barrier where they can come in and see a career, but they can't necessarily get into, right? Because look, if I'm going to be a carpenter or a plumber, right? Some of those trades that are out there, those skills, there's a lot of skill in what they do, but the amount of equipment is lower in most of the contractors provide.
Yeah.
Right? Where the shops don't do this because they're going to lose equipment, right? Mechanical, collision, whatever it may be. So what do you feel can be done? You guys are doing a ton of things. Training is awesome, right? On the safety in the workplace environment. Then you guys are going through and saying, okay, I got a bunch of these people we're training 200,000, and you build a career site to help them find jobs. How do we drive more people? And I think, in a way, maybe this is a little plug. How do we drive people to SB2 Careers to get logged in and starting to go look at and recruit from your site? Because how many in total are on that site right now?
So we've got 50,000 entry-level technicians that are available to be recruited right now. And one of the things that we see is we see a lot of the larger organizations that are teaming up with us, whereas the smaller single shops or small independent MSOs, they seem to be slower to jump on board. Sometimes that's because they don't want to recruit an entry level technician. And look, I'd rather have somebody be upfront with me and say, I am not interested in recruiting or hiring or training or growing my own. I just want the experienced guys. And if that's the case, that's cool. Just keep doing what you're doing, which in most cases has to be poaching from other shops, because there isn't a pool of experienced technicians out there just waiting for a call. But everybody on our system is entry level. And if you're ready, willing, and able to recruit, hire, and grow your own technicians, we've got the largest database of entry level techs in the whole country. And that's our goal. Let's help these students find the right first employer, not just a first employer, but the right first employer who's going to have a plan for showing a young technician their career path, who's going to recognize that they're going to have to deal with tool issues and has a desire to grow their own, so they're not dealing with the technician shortage in a few years. That mentoring within a shop and all the things that go with growing a technician may sound daunting, but once you do it and once you implement it and stick with it, in a few years, you're not going to be the one that's panicking, going, where am I going to find technicians? And that's that right first employer is what we're looking for, so that when those entry level techs enter the industry, they stay in the industry. Does that make sense, Don?
It does. I mean, Kyle, the interesting side of it is the more you spoke about it, the more it resonated in my mind of everyone understanding what entry level means, right? I think that's the biggest thing, because when I wanted to go recruit someone to be entry level, what I'm really looking for is someone who can be an apprentice to a master technician, who can start to dismantle that car and help move that through the process, knowing the fact that we have to have what we would call in a factory assembly line, and I can't just slow it down, right? I still have to have the same level of output. I just need to have another person touching it and learning more as they go.
Yep.
And that isn't necessarily entry level. So when, with craft and the other things that we do together in the industry, maybe it's more about that curriculum. How do they graduate these programs to have an impact to the employer right away? Or are we misrepresenting the education that they go through? Because they'll have a very good understanding of what the industry is, how to go through it. Like you said, here's the tools, here's this. They have that understanding. Now, do we create and cultivate a path? How do we get that to that next point? Or is there a secondary schooling that needs to be built somewhere? Right?
Oh man, there are so many intricacies to what you just said, Don. So first of all, I think that we aren't cognizant enough of as an industry of what the instructors have to go through just to get this student through 1 or 2 years of their program. So, for example, many shops think, well, when that entry level technician steps out of that program, I mean, come on, man, you've been trained, you should know how to do this stuff. How can you not do these basic things? Well, as a program, that instructor has been tasked with trying to teach those students, a group of students, some of whom are absolutely focused on being a professional, some of whom may have got booted out of math or English class for being disruptive, and everything in between. And sometimes those kids that got booted out of class end up being great technicians because they find that this was where they should have been all along. But there are other kids that really aren't in it for a career. And so these instructors have the widest range of students as far as engagement goes. And they're given a very, very short period of time to try to teach them everything they could possibly need to know to enter the industry. And so they don't get as many repetitions as we want them to. So it doesn't matter whether it, and I'm not talking just collision. I'm not talking just auto service. I'm not even just talking transportation. I'm literally talking about all technical trades. It is darn near impossible to give them enough repetitions for them to be even close to being able to function as cars are rolling in and stay up to speed with technicians who have been doing it for 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 years. And unfortunately, that puts them at an immediate disadvantage. And all too often, we say, well, look, if you haven't figured this out in 6 months or 12 months, you're out of here. And they simply haven't had enough time, enough reps to achieve a level of proficiency that's going to make money for the shop and make money for themselves. And we cannot just keep casting these young technicians off, or we're going to just make our technician shortage even worse.
Right. What's interesting, because as we've gone through this conversation today, and hopefully our listeners are gaining this insight by having this conversation with you today, because what you guys do in an organization, SB2, is phenomenal, because it's not only the safety side, but you're also pointing out that the technician gaps that we have are self-inflicted, right?
Yeah.
When you start to go look at 200,000 in the last 12 months, right? And they're talking about this huge shortage inside our industry. And yet there's 200,000 there, and there's less than 42% that actually even make it into our workforce because they go in another direction. It is absolutely amazing. And so it sounds like, the industry has not fully addressed really the true need. And like you said, a lot of these students, they get in here into these programs, and these instructors, are we providing instructors with the right curriculum to get them, to make sure that person, that student, when they get out, is going to be where they need to be in the industry? Is it not just the fact that it was someone who was bad in a class and sent them there? Is it someone? Because look, and we've had these conversations, Kyle. You and I've had this where, just because you're not good in a structured educational system, right, doesn't mean that you're someone who's supposed to be a blue collar worker. That's not true. Right. And that person who is mathematically inclined is probably a really good candidate to start to do the things that we need in our industry, and can become very, very successful because of the complexity of these vehicles, right?
Without doubt. And the technology is so crazy now. We're moving at such a rapid pace with new technology coming out. I mean, the lines are even blurring between collision repair and automotive service. We've got to have a service component to every vehicle that gets fixed now.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing what's going on, and we talk about the pre-scan and post-scan and all this fun stuff. And you're right, that's with the ADAS and some of the things that were in the news when we started this, where these vehicles are headed. The training necessary from a safety perspective is kind of interesting, because it's not just on the equipment side. We talked about the electrified vehicles, right? Where these vehicles are going. You have training for that, right?
We do. We've got to deal with the safety issues that a student or a technician is going to deal with if they're putting hands on a hybrid vehicle or an electric vehicle.
Yeah, and so and you also, so when you look at these things that you guys do, you're pivotal in the industry for many things. But what you guys have done as an organization that people don't realize, and this is where I hope when they listen to the cast, they can hear this, is what you have done to address where this industry needs technicians, and that shortage is there, and how they start to kind of maybe push towards leveraging the things you guys have put together. And you and I have had this conversation about one of the groups we're with, that they should start to utilize it more. And the more I spent time going through it, and you've given me access to go in and take a look at everything that's available in there, there is just a huge, because look, the recruiting isn't just on the technician side, right? There are people that sell software and services like my organization that need people that have an understanding of that. So there's another career path. It's not necessarily just being a tech, right? You start looking at the paint manufacturer. You look at the equipment manufacturers. They need people that have these skills to go down this path, right? And you guys have a database filled with these things. It's just amazing to me, right? It's a resource that's truly available. It's being underutilized right now. And maybe I'm wrong. So correct me on this. Today, how many users of the career section do you guys have today? Or do you want to share that? I mean, is there a lot of people that are accessing it today?
So we have over 900 companies that have an active account right now on SP2 Careers. And we've got a couple of big announcements that will be coming in the near future that are going to increase that number significantly. But one of the things, and you know what? Let me
wait a minute. You gave us a little tease. Come on now.
Yeah, well, I can't announce it yet, but we
tune back in. We got to have you back for these big announcements.
We're going to more than double that number in a very short period of time. And what I think, if I were to say one thing to the entire transportation industry, it would be, please start recruiting young technicians, those entry-level techs, while they are still in school. Get them opportunities to be a mentee, to be an intern, to have a part-time job. Help them out. Give them a tool program while they're working at your shop. Get them involved early, because if we lose them, then it was every moment that they spent in their career tech program was a complete waste. But the easiest way to keep them in is to get them involved while they're still learning. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. I mean, I think, it's great advice, and I think we need to get more organizations inside the transportation world, right, to really go after and do this. And it's that mentoring, right? It's that apprentice. Those programs to get these guys in. And look, I'm going to wrap this back around because, we're almost at the end of our time today. We really appreciate everything you've done. What I really want to make sure that everyone understands is that what you guys are doing at SP2 is more than just the safety side. But as you guys you can tell just by listening to you on our cast today, the passion that you have for this transportation world, right? And the need to fill the next generation, right? And we got to get this generation that's got a different education, a different background because of the sophistication and the ever-changing automobile, right? The automobile is not going to stop changing.
Amen.
We don't have carburetors anymore. So we have to get to this next generation, and you're there. So what I really want to do is I want to thank you for your time today. I want to encourage our listeners to go out and visit your website, sp2.org. Is that correct?
That's right. sp2.org.
.org and sp2/career.org as well to get to the career site, right? Or just click from the main site into the login.
Just go to sp2.org and you can get information on the training as well as careers all right there.
Yes, and I encourage everyone. Look, I've known Kyle. I've known you for a long time in the industry, and what you guys are doing and what you did for my organization when I was, on the body shop side was phenomenal. So I think the training and the offering you guys have there to educate, to make sure that they're protecting their business, right, and having a safe work environment is number one, and then two, you can just tell the passion to continue to have viable technicians to watch this sector continue to grow. Because look, it's growing. Not the way people think it is. The industry is growing because of the sophistication of the vehicle and where it changes. Like you said, it's not just in the collision repair, it's also in the mechanical. These things are starting to blend. It's going to blend more over time. But I really want to thank you for your time and really, really appreciate your insight and willingness to be a part of our cast today. So thank you.
Thanks for having me, Don. I've really enjoyed it, buddy.
Solera Innovation Labs is a podcast produced by Solera, a global leader in data-driven solutions and services. Solera collects and translates complex data into actionable insights for automotive, identity, and property partners across 90 countries and counting. Learn more at solera.com or find us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram.